written in 1916, Susan Glaspell's play Trifles is loosely based on a real murder trial that happened in a small town in Iowa. Now, as the play opens, the sheriff and his wife, the county attorney, and the neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Hale, enter the kitchen of the Wright household, where Mr. Wright has been found murdered. Now, Mrs. Wright has been arrested and is being taken into custody because there's a suspicion that she might have killed her husband. Now, at the Wrights' home, the male sheriff and male county attorney are very arrogant and demeaning towards the female neighbors. So in the kitchen, for example, they decide that there's nothing here but kitchen things. And so the men move upstairs to examine the scene of the crime, leaving Mrs. Hale and the sheriff's wife, Mrs. Peters, in the kitchen. Now, Mrs. Hale and Mrs. Peters find clues that the men consider to be trifles, and thereby are able to uncover Mrs. Wright's possible motivations. Right? So some of the things they find are the unfinished quilt, the fruit preserves, an empty birdcage. And so all these clues together help to create a set of circumstances that might have led this housewife to commit murder. And they become irritated by the men's kind of pompous attitude towards the women. And so Mrs. Hale and Mrs. Peters choose to hide the evidence as an act of compassion towards Mrs. Wright. Now, at the beginning of the 20th century, we saw a lot of revolutions in politics, in industry, technology, and communications. Now, people had to reconsider their roles in the social order. And so a lot of modernist playwrights tried to create very realistic portrayals of life in this new modern world. And modernist playwrights would often use experimental formats in order to convey their ideas. And also at that time, women did not have the right to vote, and so their opinions were often ignored. And so for this reason, a lot of modern plays have a very feminist focus. So feminist dramas really throw a spotlight on a lot of women's issues. Now, Trifles has a modernist format. Its central female character actually never appears on stage and is only developed through the observations of other characters. And the personalities of the male and female characters really clearly reveal these different perspectives and also really demonstrate that this traditional and ultimately problematic gender roles were really creating a divide between the men and the women. So keep all this information in mind as you think about the dramatization of real-life events.